How do I open the door? I thought it was a camera. I thought it was it's not a camera, it's a button to open the door is what it is. Another door. Oh, wait. Ooh, it's electronic. And I'm looking at the price tag and it's $76,000. Let's raw review this motherfucker. Now, it may come to a surprise of the fact that I actually don't have a very close connection with Ford, mostly because I've never actually owned, I don't think I've ever owned any Fords ever in my entire life, but I did partner with Van Horn or Carnival so that I could get my hands on this Ford Mustang Mach E-GT that actually doesn't look half bad. Now, you might be thinking, Alex, this is a raw review, so you're gonna be nice to it, and the answer is no, okay? But there are some things that I do like about it. I think it's worth stating. So by the way, don't forget to drop a comment and rate this thing out of 10. I didn't actually even know these still existed. I saw them all over the internet and then they disappeared. So if you're looking to get a $75,000 Ford Mustang Mach E-GT, there's one of them here and there's a lot of Hyundais and Kias because I think I'm gonna get stabbed by one. There's an Elantra N behind me. It's still pissed off that I rated it an 8. Okay, first off, I'm gonna rate it an 8. It was a good car. It's just not a good modified car. Okay, Hyundai's gotta prove themselves and I stand behind that to a T, all right? But on the other side of the fence, you have an electric vehicle that was made by Ford. So you know it's gonna have some good stuff, but it's also gonna probably be way off in some other things because Ford is still figuring out how to do this whole electric vehicle game. And apparently this is supposed to compete with the Tesla Model Y, which is another vehicle that I don't think an enthusiast would ever buy in their entire life unless they had a family of 4 and they were looking to get into being an adult, or they possibly just moved to California to buy a California Camry, which is a Model Y. So let's get into a little bit about what maybe is funky and good, because I'm fair about this car. Okay. First things first is the old, vent test there, bud. And because it's an electric car, it's got 2 very small wheel vents over here, which is pretty sick. What do you got hiding back there? What you got back there, bud? You got some closet space? You put some boxers back there? I'm assuming this opens up in terms of some sort of adaptive downforce because they're trying to be a performance version, which this one has 480 horsepower and at peak performance, when it's sunny out, at exactly the right degrees, it can get you 600 foot-pounds of torque. 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds, but in all honesty, when it comes to electric vehicles, I don't care about the 0 to 60 because they all throw all their torque into the 0 to 60 time, so they have something to brag about because it's an electric vehicle. And this is saying 3.8 or 3.5. Most people are getting 3.7 out of the 0 to 60, but what's really interesting is their quarter mile time. Not just their quarter mile time, but the trap speed of the quarter mile time. One thing that is interesting though is that it doesn't actually cool anything. There's no cooling, so that doesn't come back to the wheels or the calipers, which, speaking of which, the Brembo brakes, super nice touch. I'm pretty sure they're a 4-pot, but very, very cool. And I would say the only other thing that I really like about the wheel and tire setup is I actually dig the OEM wheels on this. I know the stock one, the non-GT, it looked like big booty cheeks. This one does not. I would actually keep these. And look at this, look at this. They kept the Michelin Pilot All-Season 4s, which is pretty nice considering you're gonna need that when you're doing all them digs because you wanna brag about your 0 to 60 time. You see, here's the thing when you look at these electric vehicles that have these insane 0 to 60 times, is it's not just the 0 to 60 time that matters as an enthusiast. What matters is how that power carries over as you get above 60 miles an hour. Now sure, for fun and for play, a 0 to 60 is a lot of fun. And when you have 600 foot-pounds of torque, that's super cool. But what about the actual quarter mile time? What about the actual top speed? What about the actual time that you need to race the vehicle? Not saying an almost 5,000-pound SUV named a Mustang can actually do that, but when you're entering a quarter mile at right around 12 seconds, but you're only entering it at about 101 mile an hour trap speed, that means that it's putting all of its juice, all of its pizzazz, all of its secret sauce, its Frank's hot sauce, its Tabasco in the first 0 to 60 miles an hour. Once you get from 60 to 100, it gets really hard for this vehicle, and the quarter mile is probably the best closest thing you can get to it. And when you look at something for $75,000, not saying that you need to have something that's super fast, because ultimately that's not why you're buying this, it does make it a little bit harder to swallow when you consider that there's almost a $10,000 price tag adder for having the performance version of the stock version that looks like big doo-doo. Like, that other base one shouldn't even be a thing. This should be the base looking one because it is a Mustang, and that name needs to carry some heritage and some design elements that really make it a Mustang, not just taillights that resemble a Mustang. It needs more than that. It needs the power. It needs the performance. That shouldn't be something that just comes along and they just tag it along so that people hope that it adapts to the market better. I think it's stupid. I think marketing needs to stop doing dumb like that. I'm gonna roll this window down so we can sit and we can chat. But there are some things that are really cool about this vehicle. There's some things that I think Ford did way better than Tesla. Now, I'm not gonna talk about how this is a perfect car because I'm not one of these massive channels that gets paid tens of thousands of dollars to review things and make them perfect. But what I can say is that it feels more like a car in here than just a tech gadget. Outside of the center display, this massive screen crap that needs to go away just a little bit. Like, I get it, it doesn't need to be this big. However, everything outside of that, it feels more like a car than it does an electric vehicle, which is weird to say. Now, I've driven my fair share of Teslas, I've driven my fair share of Porsches now, but what I can say is that a lot of times they feel too digital. They feel too perfect. When you move around, it doesn't feel like a car. It feels like you're just on a train and somebody else is driving. When I was just putzing this thing along in the parking lot, learning even how to get it into drive and getting it in for shots, it feels like a normal vehicle that just happens to be an electric vehicle. And I think Ford did that on purpose. And to that, I would say great job, because I do like how they brought it almost down a little bit in terms of not making it so electric-y. But there's still a lot of gadgets, and the screen is tiny. Does the screen pop up? Is it like a McLaren? Nope, stay small. All right, and the back seats. I like that. That Alcantara is nice. That part's nice. The materials are actually really nice. Can I fit? I can fit. I can fight. No, this is actually not half bad. I don't mind this. Not too shabby. It's got the vents back here. It's got a nice little USB. It's got a USB-C. This is good back here, but it's like they actually plan for people to sit in the back seat. You got some cup holders. It doesn't feel like the material's like super perfect, but it definitely feels good enough. I do like, that's nice. I have no complaints about the back seat. I've only reviewed 2 cars, so I mean, it's not saying much, but you know, I feel like we're off to a good start. You see, here's the biggest problem I have with the Mustang Mach E-GT. It's not the 0 to 60. It's not the trap speed of 101. It's not the price tag of $75,000. But it is the fact that Ford has this almost like they're in this position that a lot of car manufacturers are, that are making them feel like they don't really know where they're going. And for the first time, we have a lot of these multi-billion-dollar car manufacturers actually unsure of what they're going to be doing in the future. So they slap the Mustang name on this and they see if it's going to hold. But the thing is Mustang's not anywhere on this actual platform. You won't see it really outside of like door sills or maybe here, maybe like it's not on the side of the car. It's not on the back of the car. It's not even on the front of the car. It's just Mach E, which tells me 2 things. Number one, it tells me that they're not confident that they can hold the Mustang name onto this EV SUV. And 2, they really don't even know how long they're going to be able to keep up with this. For this is just a test, right? The Mach E-GT is a test to see how the market will handle something that has the name of the performance-oriented muscle car, but still is catering to the demographic that everyone wants to own, an SUV, which makes me a little upset. I don't like the fact that Ford is playing with the Mustang name in such a nonchalant way. And I get that they're trying to make this a fun vehicle. I love the color. I love the fact that it's got some cool stuff. But that doesn't take away from the fact of what the Mustang name is meant to be, which is a performance-oriented, fully performance-oriented car. But I'm not that old. It's still really cool. Now, one of the things... Okay, all right. One of the things to remember is I forgot my entire suctiony mount thing. This MacBook 15's gotta go away. I don't mind it actually. This is a little interesting though. And let's go. Ambient lighting selection, 1 pedal drive. Oh yeah, you have like 1 pedal drive with this too, don't you? If you don't think I'm gonna launch it the moment I leave this dealership, you're out of your damn mind. Something that feels a little bit different, and I'm just not used to it yet, is the use of the regenerative power and braking and acceleration that these cars use to try and carve out as much battery power as it possibly can in terms of savings so that it can stuff it back in there to extend the range. And you can feel it particularly, I mean, even in the unbridled mode, I feel like I can sense it. In the engage and whisper, it's huge. Every single second they're trying to maximize that battery range because the battery range isn't really that great on these things. I still think it's decent. I think 270 miles can get you plenty far. I have an E85 Honda that gets 160 miles to a tank, so I have no place to judge. But it's so sluggish from 60 to 100. It's trying its damnedest. And it just can't do it. It just can't. It just slows way down. It just slows so much once you get above that 60-mile-an-hour range. And that's one of those things with the weight of these things. It's just a lot. It's a lot to throw at it. And I know I can give it as many excuses as humanly possible to say why it does that. But really, you have to ask yourself, at $75,000, is it acceptable? Is it acceptable to have that sort of sluggish behavior? Maybe, maybe not. That's kind of up to you to decide when you're spending the amount of money that you are on this thing. I don't want to try and compare it to a gas vehicle though, because I think the closest thing you could get to it would probably be like a Macan GTS or potentially one of those Jag SUVs. I think in the used market, if you're looking at EVs, you really are only looking at probably Tesla because Porsches are still way too expensive to even be close into the bracket. And that's where I think some of these electric vehicles, they have this like carnival ride complex where they're really good at focusing on one thing. In this, for instance, they're really trying to put a lot of focus on the 0 to 60. Now, sure, it has upgraded suspension. It's got the electromagnetic, dampers to try and really control the weight. And they use that as a perk for this vehicle. I don't know if I would use anything outside of the 0 to 60 as a perk for this vehicle, mostly because the weight requires upgraded suspension. And the fact that they're trying to make this more of a track-oriented vehicle requires upgraded dampers. So I think while it's important to say, yeah, it's got all this upgraded stuff, sure it does. But I would almost say that if it's not a GT, it probably became underwhelming or below the bar, and these are what probably should have been in the base model. This is a lot of weight to be lugging around, and this is something that if you look at Macan GTSs and performance-oriented SUVs, they suffer from this too. But the Mach E-GT has a double negative in the fact that batteries are just really freaking heavy. I'm gonna do another 0 to 60 because it makes me happy. That is nice. I enjoy that. There's no slippage. The all-wheel drive system's awesome. I turned off all the fancy noises, so it's just the road noise, some cows and me. Guys, that was very rude. You should not be doing 0 to 60s. There's more to electric vehicles than doing 0 to 60 stuff from a dead stop because, they're trying to progress the world. They're trying to make things different. They're trying to do something that really improves the environment. And I think that's important because it's not just about trying to go as fast as humanly possible in an electric vehicle at all times. It's about knowing that you're making a difference in the world. Now, 3 reasons why I may not buy one of these. I wouldn't buy one particularly and specifically if the money portion of this was a determining factor for purchase. This is not the best value car you can buy. This is not the best EV that you can buy for the dollar. This is not the best performance SUV you can buy for the dollar. This is not the best Ford you can buy for the dollar. So it's more of you looking at this and saying, I'm willing to experiment or I'm willing to support the cause of being an electric vehicle as to why you'd probably pick one of these up. The second reason that I probably wouldn't buy one of these is because I still don't fundamentally agree that this should be called a Mustang. I don't believe it should be, because it doesn't pay attention to the community that was built around the Mustang. The reason Ford is so successful with the Mustang isn't just because it's a good pony car. It's because the community made it a great car. It's because they supported the initiatives, gave it the race pedigree, gave it the aftermarket support. And this really doesn't do any of that. It's an SUV trying to cater to a little bit of everyone, which is what a lot of car manufacturers are doing right now. And I just don't really like that. I don't vibe with it. And the third reason that is why I probably wouldn't buy it is actually I don't have a third reason. I do think it checks a lot of the boxes. I just think those two shortages in terms of not being able to be very competitive in the market against any sort of category that it falls in, and also being incredibly pricey, that's really the two big Achilles heels to this car. SUV thing. Crash or be fast and eat at, oh, okay. By the way, this is a properly fun vehicle. I would argue that this is actually a really fun SUV. I would argue it's a great EV. Now, sure, it's still short on a certain couple things when you compare it to the Model Y. And sure, dollar for dollar, the Model Y probably still takes the cake against the Mach E-GT Mustang, you know? But as a car enthusiast, I think it is properly well done. It is fun, but it reminds me a little bit like chocolate chip cookie dough, where it's been sitting out on the island for about 45 minutes and it's not cold and it's not a cookie yet. It's right in the middle, and it needs a little bit more love, either forward or backwards, to be what we want it to be. This car still has some shortages in terms of what it should properly be. I don't like the fact that the trap time on a quarter mile is 101 at 12 seconds. I don't enjoy the fact that this carries a Mustang name when it has no aftermarket community. And I really don't think I like the way that Ford is treating their electric vehicles right now, because they still don't know what they're doing. Something that Porsche nailed perfectly with the Taycan is that it knew it was testing things out, but it knew where it wanted to be in the market. I'm not sure Ford really knows what to do with this thing yet. That's why they sometimes call it a Mach E-GT and sometimes they call it a Mustang. That's why Matt Farah refuses to call it a Mustang, because it does a really great job at some stuff, but it's not a muscle car and it's not a performance muscle car. And even when you look at it, which I do think it looks sharp, there's really just like little things to keep in mind. The fact that they have these massive door hangs underneath the door cards, the reason that it's two-toned, sure, it looks good, but it also hides the batteries, and the batteries on this thing is huge. Depending on what kind of boy you're talking to, it could be 6 inches, it could be 8 inches, but really, once you get the light on and you take a proper picture that's not grainy, it's about 5 inches that it's hiding underneath this massive, massive door hang. Do I think it's a fun car? Yes, I love the color. I love the way it drives. Is it heavy? Yeah, it's freaking heavy. Of course it is. They're still figuring it all out. I would rate this as a new car probably like a 7. I would almost give it a 6.5, because the cost of these things is still way too high for the general market to actually jump into and feel like they're enjoying something that's just as much of a test bed as Ford treats it as a test bed. You can't demand a premium when you still don't really know what you're doing. From an enthusiast perspective though, I want to give credit where credit is due. It's a 4, because there's no aftermarket support, and there needs to be. There needs to be that voice of the community, especially with the Mustang crowd, and I don't think this thing does it. Do I think it's fun? Do I think it's cool? Do I think it looks great? Absolutely. But do I think it's doing what it's supposed to do when it carries the Mustang name? I do not. I don't think so yet. I think it's going to take a couple years, and that's why I would give it the score that I gave. But you guys let me know in the comment section below before I get stung by a bee, and let me know what you'd like to see me review next. I'm Alex, Alex.Martini with 2 underscores at the end on Instagram, and we will see you later. Peace.